Meet Ayesha. Ayesha is 29, marketing coordinator at a mid-size firm, good salary, decent apartment. People at work genuinely like her. Her manager calls her a team player. Her friends call her the reliable one. Her mother calls her the good one. Ayesha has never said no to anyone in her life. Not once. Not really. Not cleanly. She has rescheduled her own doctor's appointment 3 times this year because a co-worker needed help with a presentation. She stayed late on her birthday, not because she was asked, but because she felt guilty leaving when the project wasn't done. She lent her cousin Ari's $40,000 8 months ago. Her cousin has never mentioned it again. Ayesha has texted her 6 times since then, not about the money, just to check in, because asking for it back felt ruder than losing it. By every visible measure, she is a wonderful person, but every Sunday night, around 10 p.m., something happens. The week ahead appears in her mind like a wall. The requests she already knows are coming. The favors she'll say yes to before the sentence is even finished. She lies in bed, staring at the ceiling, and feels something she doesn't have a clean word for. Not sadness, not anger, something quieter than both, emptiness. And then she feels guilty for feeling empty. Because she has a good life. Because people love her. Because who is she to feel this way when she's done nothing but try to be good? This is where Ayesha's story starts, not at a dramatic breaking point, at a Sunday night ceiling and a feeling she's been pushing down for years. Now meet Zara. Zara is 31. Same city, same kind of job. 3 years ago, she looked exactly like Ayesha. Same Sunday nights, same ceiling, same word she couldn't find. Then one ordinary Tuesday, a colleague asked her to cover a weekend shift for the 3rd time in 2 months. And for the first time, instead of that familiar nod followed by yes, of course, Zara paused. 2 full seconds, and said, "I can't this time." Her colleague looked surprised. Zara's heart was pounding. That was it. No explosion, no catastrophe. 8 months later, she was promoted. Today, her friendships are deeper than they were 3 years ago. Her yes means something because her no exists. Today, we're going to follow both of them. What eats her? Ayesha's niceness is actually costing her. What Zara found on the other side of that first no, and exactly what the gap between those 2 lives looks like over time. Because the self-help world spends a lot of time telling you to be kind. Almost nobody shows you what excessive niceness actually does. To your career, your relationships, and your sense of who you are. Let's start with Ayesha's real numbers. Ayesha spends an average of 11 hours per week doing things she did not want to do, but could not say no to. Tasks that weren't hers, favors that were never returned, emotional labor that drained her just as surely as unpaid work. 11 hours per week, that's 572 hours a year, 23 full days of her life, every single year, spent in service of other people's comfort at the expense of her own. But the number isn't even the worst part, because Ayesha doesn't just lose the hours. She pays a triple tax on every single favor, energy before each yes, dreading the ask, preparing her face, energy during each yes, suppressing the resentment, performing enthusiasm she doesn't feel, energy after each yes, replaying the interaction, wondering if she came across as genuine enough, good enough, time, energy, and the slow erosion of her own self-concept. Research on chronic self-silencers, people who consistently suppress their own needs to avoid conflict, found measurably higher cortisol levels, lower life satisfaction, and significantly higher rates of anxiety and depression. The body doesn't experience niceness as virtue. It experiences the suppression behind it as threat. Here's the part nobody tells you about people like Ayesha. She is not nice because she is weak. She is nice because at some point, niceness worked. Maybe she grew up in a house where disagreement meant tension that lasted for days, where expressing a need felt selfish, so she stopped expressing needs and called it maturity. Maybe she was just the kid who got praised for being easy, the one adults pointed at and said, "She never gives us any trouble." And that praise felt so good, so reliable, that she built her entire identity around continuing to deserve it. Niceness became the strategy that made the world feel predictable. You don't abandon a strategy that works. You refine it. You perfect it. Until 20 years later, you can't tell where the strategy ends and you begin. This is what Aisha is carrying, not a character flaw, a survival script she wrote in pencil when she was 8 years old and has been printing in permanent ink ever since. But here is where the cost compounds beyond her inner world. When a person consistently makes themselves available without limits, the people around them recalibrate. What was once appreciated as generosity becomes expected as default. The favor that produced gratitude in month 1 produces nothing in month 6. Aisha's manager no longer thanks her for staying late. He schedules around her availability as if it belongs to him. Research tracking workplace dynamics found that highly agreeable employees were significantly less likely to be selected for promotions or leadership roles. Not because they lacked skill, but because their agreeableness was consistently misread as lack of confidence or ambition. Aisha got passed over for a team lead position last year. Her manager gave it to someone with less experience and louder opinions. She told herself it was fine. She stayed late that night helping the new team lead organize the transition. And then there is what chronic niceness does to her relationships. You cannot build real intimacy with a person who never tells you what they actually need. Real closeness requires the moment where you say, "This hurts me," or "I need something different from you." Those moments are uncomfortable, but they are the architecture of genuine connection. When Aisha never has those moments, her relationships stay warm, pleasant, consistent, but shallow in a way she can feel and cannot name. Her friends love her, but they don't fully know her. She has never shown them the parts that need things, the parts that are tired. She is loved, but she is loved for a performance. And some nights she wonders if the love would survive the real version, the one with opinions and limits and an occasional honest no. She is too afraid to find out, so she keeps performing. And the performance gets lonelier every year. Now back to Zara, and what she actually found. When she started saying no, she braced for consequences. Some came. One colleague grew distant for 3 weeks. One friend, the kind who only calls in crisis, quietly drifted away when Zara stopped being available at midnight for every emergency. That one stung. But here is what Zara found on the other side of those losses. The relationships that remained became real. Her friends didn't love her because she was endlessly available. They loved her when she showed up with limits, with needs, with an occasional "I can't right now." They stayed, and they came closer, because her honesty gave them permission for their own. That is what Aisha's niceness actually prevents, not conflict, closeness. So, what can you actually do? 3 things that work. First, the pause before the yes. 2 seconds. 1 internal question. Do I actually want to do this, or am I afraid of what happens if I don't? You don't have to act differently yet. You just have to start knowing the difference. Second, the small no. 1 low-stakes no per week. A social event you don't want to attend. A task that isn't yours. Small, specific, real. Each small no is a rep. You are training a new response in a nervous system that has only known one. Third, the full audit. Add up the hours. Write down the relationships where the exchange is entirely one-directional. See the number, because you need to see the full cost of your niceness, not the warmth it generates, the life it quietly consumes. Aisha is going to get there. She just hasn't done the full math yet. If you are watching this as an Aisha, the question is not whether you are a good person. You are. The question is whether the goodness you are showing the world is yours, or whether it is a strategy you built before you knew you had a choice. Being truly kind and being boundarylessly nice are not the same thing. They were never the same thing. One comes from fullness, the other comes from fear. The people who love you don't need your fear. They need you. The version with limits and needs and the occasional honest no. That version is not harder to love. That version, it turns out, is much easier. Somewhere, a 26-year-old is reading a message right now. A favor she doesn't want to do. She already knows what she's going to say. She doesn't know yet that the yes forming in her throat is not kindness. It is the oldest armor she owns. But she will.